in my hand, I've got a key to a motorcycle that has been highly requested on my channel, and that is, of course, the all-new 2021 Ducati Monster. As you guys can tell, this is not your dad's monster, your grandfather's monster. The trellis frame that has quote-unquote been the one piece that makes this motorcycle a monster is now gone. And also what's gone is 40 pounds of weight from this motorcycle. Aluminum front frame completely replaced the trellis frame, and with that aluminum frame you get an increased amount of stiffness. The engine in this bike is the parallel twin, producing 111 horsepower, which is spectacular for a motorcycle of this size. Over the next probably 15-20 minutes or so, I just want to go through my thoughts, feelings, first impression of riding this motorcycle. And this is a first impression ride. I have been riding this bike for the last few hours around Michigan and had a blast. I've been taking a lot of good notes, been thinking about this bike and why they produced it, why they made the changes that they did, and ultimately, like, is this a good motorcycle to buy? So if that all sounds good, guys, keep watching. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button, because there are so many more videos coming up in the upcoming years. All right, let's jump on the bike. I kind of want to talk about this before I get on the bike. I think it's really important to just jump on and talk about fit and things like that, right? So key in, look at that dash. Not the biggest dash in the world, but it's very bright, that is for sure. Basically standard across the Scrambler and some of the cheaper, like the Super Sport lineup, are these controls. Nothing crazy. Lights, horn, some menu selection, mode enter, toggle button, horn, hazards, starting, kill, brights. Very simple controls. Hydraulic Brembos, front and clutch. Easy to get to that kickstand. If you guys know from my previous Panigale experience, it's hard for me to get that kickstand up. Very easy on the Monster. As for, I think one of the more important things when you're thinking about your first or second motorcycle is the ability to flat foot. Just have a little more control when you come into a stop sign or a stoplight. I'm about 5'9", 5'10", 200 pounds, and I am flat foot on both sides of this motorcycle. And I think that's really important, because it kind of gives you that added security, that added safety. In general, let's talk about the design of the bike. LEDs across everything that you can have an LED. In Europe, they have sequential LEDs that come up this instead of these. These are because of the US government standards. You have to have them. But a lot of people who I know who own this bike reached out to Ducati UK, Ducati Italy, and bought the sequentials, and they basically plug and play. Super easy. The bike is really good looking. A lot of people would say kind of mimics that of the Yamaha MT-07, but I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Yamaha's MT-07 is their best-selling motorcycle in the world right now because it's so good. Engine's great, and it looks very similar to something like this. And I think this is a nice entry, kind of like a different setup, different bike into the Ducati family. If you don't want that more Scrambler lineup, this is kind of what the young people are looking for. So I think Ducati did a good choice and a very big step away from the trellis frame to get it into that more, what do they call it, more, not like a modern look. Yamaha has a neo-modern, something like that. That's Honda's terminology for the frame or for the body. There are like three colors. There's red, there's black, and there's slate gray. Will come with the red wheels. I'd probably go with the all black. All black, you can't go wrong. But yeah, I think overall it is a good looking bike. For a while, when I first saw the tank, I was really confused because it seemed really tall. And off the bike, it is really tall, right? Look at the top of the tank is almost parallel to the top of the dash, and that seemed just design kind of off. But when you sit in the bike, that's when you really understand why Ducati builds the bikes around the rider first, right? You really sit in, your knees are perfectly kept inside this crevice of the tank, and it keeps you there very snugly around any corner that you can find. I'm sure there are probably going to be some aftermarket kind of grip pads here, and that's just going to add to the experience of just really feeling secure. All right, enough of me talking. You guys are tired of that. Let's jump on the motorcycle and let's go for a ride.
I feel like it's important to give a quick history lesson on the Ducati Monster family, as it's been so important to the brand for so many years. Ducati's been making the Monster for more than 25 years now, with the first Monster M900 appearing in 1993. And while the new bike may look a bit different, the philosophy of the bike remains basically untouched. Since the launch of the M900, the Ducati Monster family has been upgraded to keep to the times, but nothing really aggressive has been done until now. To launch this new monster with the 937cc engine, Ducati killed off the 797, the 821, and the 821 Stealth mode from its lineup, keeping only the 1200 and the 1200S. While the 1200 still keeps the trellis frame, it does seem likely that they will change it up either this year or the model year 2023. And I also think it's important to note that while it would seem that Ducati has given the Scrambler lineup of motorcycles the entire entry-level market, Ducati has made an A2 version of the new Monster for the UK and EU riders. So basically 35 horsepower to the Monster. Now, something that's really important to this Monster is its competition. And I think it's really important to talk about the competition when it comes to the new Monster, because I know Ducati definitely had them in mind. Yamaha has had a complete success on their hands with the MT line of naked motorcycles, especially the MT-07. They're cheap, they're good looking, they're easy to ride, they have a spectacular engine. The MT line was so good that I even bought into it for a few years with my MT-07 in Germany. And while the Monster still feels and looks very much like a Ducati, you'd be blind to not see the similarities between it and the MT-07. And for the longest time, Ducati was the only brand playing in this naked motorcycle market. But with Yamaha's MT, Kawasaki's Z900, KTM's 890 Duke, and Triumph's Street Triple, the Monster is under attack by some really impressive bikes. As for power, the Monster is powered by the 937cc Testrastrata 11-degree L-twin engine with the desmodromic valves. This is the same engine that also powers the 2021 Hypermotard 950 and the Supersport 950 models. The Monster's engine produces 111 horsepower at 9,250 RPM and 69 pound-feet of torque at just 6,500 RPM. It's tuned to produce a fatter torque band across the RPM range, especially that low to mid-range. So that means like the power is smooth and it's linear, and depending on the mode you put it in, you've got a lot of control over the power. And one thing that really impressed me was the up and down quick shifter being fitted as standard. While not the biggest feature in the world, fitted on this bike it gave more of an exciting feeling. More super sport and less upright naked bike feeling, if that makes any sense. And when it comes to rider aids to manage all of that power, the Monster is really top of its class, something that allows Ducati to kind of separate itself from its competition, right? You have multi-level traction control, wheelie control, a cornering ABS, and a tunable riding modes so you can adapt the Monster to any riding experience you're after. Now let's talk components. Even though the non-adjustable fork seems like a bit of a miss for this bike, but honestly, Ducati had to do what they needed to keep the bike under $12,000. They had to cut some corners somewhere, right? While the fork is stiff enough to not dive under aggressive braking, the rebound is progressive and extremely predictable. As for the rear shock, it's a little bit better. It is adjustable. The stock setting seems to favor that of a heavier person in my mind. I'm about 190 pounds and it felt almost perfect for the time I was riding it. If I were to take the bike to the track though, I'm not sure I'd be able to keep up. But when it comes to braking, you've got Brembos in the front and rear, and I had absolutely no complaints with them, especially when paired with the fully adjustable levers. We briefly talked about this during the intro, but the cockpit is extremely clean and organized. Nothing you don't need. It's very simple, and most importantly, no off-centered LCD displays that Yamaha and Ducati have given to some of their other bikes. But one thing that I do immediately though is to swap out the mirrors to a pair of bar-in mirrors. I could never get the stock mirrors adjusted to the point that I could actively use them to see my surroundings. I don't know if my shoulders were too wide or if my backpack came over or what it was, but I never figured out that solution. As for the trellis frame, it's gone, and which obviously pissed off a lot of people, especially the purists, but I think it's important to see the larger picture here. Right, the Monster's 414-pound curb weight is 40 pounds lighter than the outgoing 821 and 11 pounds lighter than the air-cooled 797. It's largely attributed to the new front frame design, and that frame weighs 6.6 pounds. That's a 9.9 pound lighter than the 821's trellis frame. Also contributing to the lighter weight are the cast aluminum wheels, a redesigned dual-sided swing arm, and a redesigned rear subframe that uses the glass fiber reinforced polymer technology, or just basically real fancy plastic. Overall, the total weight savings is 39.7 pounds compared to the Monster's 821, and with that weight savings, you get increased stiffness throughout the bike. As for the ergonomics, the handlebar is 2.75 inches closer compared to the Monster 821, and the rider is placed in a more upright position. The foot pegs are also repositioned in an effort to reduce leg bend. And customizable ergonomics is very important to Ducati with this bike as they try to lure more people into it. Right? There are 3 different seat heights from the factory. The stock seat height is 32.3 inches, and like we saw in the intro, that allowed me as like 5'9", 5'10" male to be able to flat foot on both sides. It's a pretty impressive feat. But there's also a shorter seat from the accessories catalog that drops it down to 31.5 inches. And if you really want to go low, you can pair that accessory seat with a lowering springs from Ducati and drop it down to 30.5 inches. And the seating position is really aggressive for such an upright bike, which makes little sense until you actually jump onto the bike. But it's almost like sitting inside the bike versus on the bike due to where the rider meets the tank in the seat. The tank brushed my stomach while I was sitting straight up though, so that makes it extremely narrow, allowing you to kind of like grip the sides with your knee extremely well. It's a very nimble bike with the setting. Now, what's the difference between the Monster and the Monster Plus? The Monster Plus adds a fly screen and a passenger seat cover to the base Monster, and it adds about $200 to the price. Do I think it's worth it? Yeah, I think the passenger seat cover is really nice to have. It kind of cleans the rear up a little bit. As for that fly screen, no, there's nothing there that I really like. As for the colors, right, the Monster and the Monster Plus are available in the Ducati Red, the Dark Stealth with black wheels, or the Aviator Gray with the red wheels. Ducati's also offering accessory adhesive graphic patterns for kind of a standout look. We'll talk about those more to come because I don't feel like they are as premium as they should be for the brand. As for pricing, right, pricing begins at $11,895 US for the Ducati Red and $12,095 for Dark Stealth and Aviator Gray. The Monster Plus is $12,195 for Ducati Red and $12,395 in the Dark Stealth and Aviator Gray. As you can see that this one came out of the dealership, so if you're in the US, these bikes are already available for you to go buy. Now to kind of wrap things up a bit, here are a list of the things that I don't like about the new Monster. Right? The engine is covered in plastic pieces, and it would be really nice if they're a little more raw. I don't like the graphic kit that Ducati is trying to push with the Monster. It seems like an excuse for them to get more money, and honestly, it just doesn't feel very premium to the brand. Some of the patterns are very like digital glitchy, and it just seems very, it seems like a Japanese motorcycle more than it does a Ducati. The bike looks too similar to the other naked motorcycles on the market, right? Ducati should always be miles apart from the competition in terms of design, and it seems like they directly copied the competition here, right? It seems like the meme of let me borrow your homework. And it runs really hot, especially for stop and go traffic in the city, and especially in the summer when I got my hands on the bike. And if I did not have my Panigale V2 with a similar TFT display, I'd be completely lost with the menu navigation. It takes some time to really learn it and get used to it. Like some options are only available when the bike is in neutral versus some things are only available when the bike is in motion. There's just a lot of small things, and of course that's not really well explained in the owner's manual. And if you're in the US, the turn signals are obnoxious to look at. But you can call up a dealer in the UK and have them send over the flush mounted signals, which are extremely easy to install. That really brings your bike to kind of the next level. And of course, if we have a list of the things we don't like, here's the list of the things that I do like. I think it's extremely nimble, and it allows you to find joy in almost any corner you encounter, no matter the size. I think the up-down quick shifter brings a lot of enjoyment to the bike, as it allows you to ride it just a tad harder than without it. And while it's a quick bike, its primary focus is not pure speed like the KTM 890, right? The Monster can be ridden in almost any scenario, whether it's touring, track, city, or highway, and doesn't feel uncomfortable at all. And I think it's a really good marriage of a tried and true engine and new components. People will know exactly what they're going to expect out of this bike without ever riding it. And I think kind of the last thing is that the bike is extremely stiff thanks to that new frame, and it offers wonderful handling. And I had a list of things that I really liked, things that I didn't like. Here's a list of things that I'm just like undecided on, right? While I think it's a good looking motorcycle, I don't know if it's on the same playing field as other Ducati motorcycles right now, right? It looks better than the competition set with maybe the exception of the KTM 890, but at the same time, it also feels like it belongs in the competition set. It seems like they copied the design directly from this, kind of like a homologation of all the bikes, and they just took it from there. Now, final thoughts. Is this a good entry bike into the Ducati family? In my honest opinion, I don't think so. 111 horsepower is a lot of power, no matter if you're an experienced rider or not. I think the A2 version is a nice add-on, but for $12,000, that's an expensive bike for an entry-level motorcycle, right? You're basically buying the brand name at this point, which I feel like is exactly what Ducati's after, as it gives new competition to the middleweight naked motorcycle competition. Now, would I suggest this bike for someone's second motorcycle? Absolutely. This bike has a lot of soul, and a lot would make this great bike for someone who's spent some time on the road and is looking for something a bit faster with nicer components without needing to jump into that $16,000 and plus territory. And I feel like the final question here is would I buy this motorcycle for myself? And the honest answer is I don't think I would. I wouldn't. While it's a great bike and I really enjoyed my time with it, I couldn't really see myself on the bike, at least in its current form, right? I'm hoping that they take this new design and combine it with a 1200cc engine in the current Monster 1200S. And I'm not sure if Ducati is going to do that, though. I'm honestly not sure. There seems to be a lot of rumors around a Street Fighter V2 floating around, and I don't think Ducati would want to make two bikes in the market cannibalizing each other that are so close to each other in terms of power and price point. So with these thoughts over, I want to thank you all for following along on today's first impression ride, right? If you don't already follow me, hit that subscribe button to always know when new videos are ready for your viewing pleasure. Now, that's it for now. Go out there and ride safe.